Mhm. Hello, people. Thanks for joining. Give me just a minute so I can spread it out. Let's see. Let's go here. Up, and up. Hello, people. Thanks for joining. Um, Sorry for the little delay. I had some computer issue to deal with today. Let me just share it quickly on Facebook. Yep. Hope you guys are doing good today. How's the image? Image looks good. Right. Taiji Qigong Shibashi. Here we go. Up. So this here, and now this one. Give me just a second, guys. I'll be with you in 3, 2, 1. There I am. Good. So let's see here. I need to turn this on so I can see myself. Yes or no? Good. Is it working? Seems like it is. Yeah. All right. Cool. So thank you everyone for joining. Sorry for the little delay today. I had some computer issue I needed to deal with. Now it's done, hopefully. So let's get on with our class. Um, won't be teaching anything new today. We'll be playing with set 2 and integrating the opening of the shoulder that we saw on Wednesday and reintegrating also some of the notion for the quad, so connecting shoulder and the hip griddle area at the same time into the various movement of set 2 so that it gives you a better idea of how everything kind of fits together and start to work together to make the form more full, more complete, more efficient, so that you discover your own body in a newer way and integrate this into your daily life. So as a quick recap from the last class, we worked a lot on opening the shoulder weld. The shoulder weld is the space that's between the upper trapezius connecting to the shoulders, going through around the clavicle and at the base of the neck. So if the shoulders are closed, then the shoulder well is closed as well and the chi can't fully circulate. We want the shoulders to be open so that the chi can flow from the sky down through the body. There's a major acupuncture point, that's the gallbladder 21, that is named the shoulder well. Although here we're talking more about the whole area, which interestingly, the point also connects to different other acupuncture points within the area. So it represents the idea of the shoulder well very well. And so that point has a major action of sinking the chi through the body and down towards the earth. So it's that aspect that we're looking into. Mechanically speaking, for this to happen, the front of the chest has to be stretched and relaxed, while the shoulder blade sinks in the back, which then connects the humerus, the arm within the shoulder, so that the arm is strong and allow for all the connection between the blood, the fluids, the chi to go, and mechanically speaking, that the arm is strongly connected with the torso as well. So this opening of the shoulder well happen mainly once the shoulder blade can sink, which comes in handy at the same time as the thoracic breathing. So in order for the thoracic breathing to happen, we need the shoulder blade to sink towards the back, which in return opens up, and then will also open up the upper thoracic area, allowing the thoracic spine and the cervical spine to stretch, and then allowing the head to open up afterwards. So we'll start simply. We'll do an extra movement that is not part of Taiji Qigong Shibashi, although it's adapted from a movement in set 8. And it's very similar to the first movement of set 2, which we'll do in a minute. But here, instead of turning the palm upward to push out, we're keeping them inward, and we're allowing the thumb to rotate from the humerus through the arm, pointing out, so that we open up as much as possible the shoulder well. Be mindful that the lumbar area and the back are not overly arched. On the opposite, we want to keep that stretch through the spine. So as we start with abdominal breathing, allowing the hands to rise. Once we reach the shoulder, we should feel the thoracic breathing starting up and opening as the shoulder blade sinks. Turning the palm facing each other at this point, and continue to inhale to fill up all the way through the upper thoracic breath. And then gently allowing the arms coming down to the side as we gently exhale and let the chi sink back through the body. So gently inhaling. Opening up all the way up, exhale. Bringing the awareness down towards the feet, deep into the ground. Inhaling up. Exhaling. Again, inhaling up. Opening, feeling the stretch, the sinking through the back, allowing the shoulders to be fully open. And exhale. So as I'm doing this, I don't want to bring my arm far behind me. I'm not trying to overly stretch the front and create more tension in the shoulders. I'm simply allowing the arms to come down to the side, but with the full-on rotation of the humerus, bringing the thumb pointing back behind. As I exhale then and relax. Inhaling up. Exhale. In. And let's do one more. Feeling the stretch, relaxation of the shoulders. And here, as you let your arms naturally hang to your side, you should feel the openness through the shoulder, the space under the armpit, the hands naturally hanging to the side of the body, and kind of a feeling of a ball of chi starting to gather inside the palms. Now that we've took the time to open up the shoulders, we want to figure out the positioning for the center of the feet. Gently rocking ourselves front and back, feeling that connection with the feet, with the ground. That sweet spot in the center, the knees slightly bent. And you should notice that since the shoulder are open, the hips should fall quickly into position, as the shoulder and hips are usually linked together. So finding this nice seated position that allow the sacroiliac joint to open up, that allow the daimai to gather through the waist and follow the curvature of the bone coming down towards the quad, the inguinal crease or inguinal triangle, allowing the chi, the blood, the fluids to gather, pass through and connecting into the leg and opening up towards the ground. As the sacroiliac joint opens, the sacrum becomes free to gently move itself, being pulled under on the inhale from the muscles from the perineum, creating that ripple up through the spine all the way to the top of the head. And on the relaxation, on the exhale, allowing everything to naturally sinks and gathers down the front back into the lower abdomen. Inhaling. Exhale. In and out. Letting your palm face behind you, beginning the first movement of set 2. Inhale, rising your hands all the way above the head. Here, allowing that opening and sinking of the shoulder blade, opening the shoulder well, which brings the elbow pointing out, in which case here, help to spiral the palm so that they face up and have this expansion while maintaining the shoulder well open and sinking down. So this position with the palm facing outward rather than, or the thumb facing in front rather than having our thumb facing back, allow for a more balanced opening of the shoulders. But if the shoulders are closed, it's a little bit more difficult to open them. Whereas when the thumb is behind, it brings a little bit more that sinking and connection through the sky to allow the sky to fall, or chi from the sky to pass through the body. So here, as we're coming up, allowing, we need to be a bit more aware, and I've worked a little bit on that harmony of the shoulder to find it as we turn the palm and gently open and come down. So play with this for a few movements. Try to see if you can find the same openness through the shoulders as your palm are facing up and out, or as the thumb is facing forward. If you find that it feels a little closed, you can go back to the previous movement we did, turning the palm behind, observing how the shoulder feels when you're here, and then try to maintain the same opening as you're doing the first movement of set 2, beginning the form and regulating the breath, allowing the chi to rise through the body and then expand into the wei chi rather than connecting to heaven and letting heaven sink more intensely. That's also a good way to feel and notice the difference, that how simply having our palm turning, or our thumb facing forward, so the palm turning up and out, versus having the thumb facing back, which brings the palm facing up, changes completely the sensation of the movement in the upper part and through the exhale. So here, if I let my thumb open, I have a rising motion, kind of a flower opening on top of me that's receiving and now sinking, which makes the movement much more vertical with less expansion through the wei chi. Whereas the first movement of set 2, while I'm turning the palm, I have much more of a rising and expanding sensation. And the sinking of the chi from heaven is a lot lighter. It kind of happened on a second plane rather than being in the front row seat. Whereas here, when we rise and the palm open, we have the rising, and then the receiving from heaven is a lot stronger. So just the change in hand position makes a difference within the feeling that we get. And the closer we are to opening the shoulder well, the more relaxed the upper body is, the more balanced the sensation will be between the two. Let's do two more of the full movement. Today's class will be a bit more like this, not a full form continuous practice, but more of a integrating the skills within our movement. Good. Joining the palm together. Turning the orbits, the celestial orbits. Getting the chi to move both through Dumai as it rises and sinking through Renmai, but also allowing it to flow through the body, connecting through the feet deep into the ground. Rising through the body all the way through the arms, fingertips, and down. So for this movement, I often mention to be careful, especially when we begin the exhale and the arms start to go forward, that we're not pushing the shoulders and not trying to stretch too much. And now that we're working specifically on opening the shoulder well, you should understand this better. Because if my arm goes forward and I'm rolling the shoulder, I'm lifting the shoulder blades and everything is now closing and collapsing, creating tension in the front of the chest. Whereas if here, especially as I'm inhaling, I allow my elbow to open up, to gently push outward, allowing the opening of the shoulder and then here the sinking of the shoulder blade, this should feel like a big opening on the upper part of the chest. So even here as my hands keep rising, the opening through the upper chest and the shoulder well remains, allowing my arms to extend while maintaining this. So I don't want to overly extend it, but to maintain this opening here, and that when I start to sink, I have this connection through the body that's coming down at the same time on both sides, as well as the front of the body coming down and sinking. So inhaling up. Exhale down. Inhale. Exhale. So feeling how when you inhale, the opening of the elbow sideways, the sinking of the shoulder blade. It's really the key to bring you this opening through the shoulders, through the shoulder well, and then gradually coming down here, making sure you don't over push and keeping the sinking and the alignment between the shoulder well and the well at the source at the bottom of the well, the kidney 1 point under the feet, so that we have this harmony happening through from the shoulders all the way down to the feet. Here, the opening through the hip area, the quad area, feeling the connection through, rising through the body as the chi rises, and feeling the gentle sinking through the body as we exhale. In and out. Good. Let's do one more. Inhale. Exhale. Separating the palms. Good. From here, the breeze swing through the willow tree. So as we inhale, open up, here always we want to make sure that the rising of the arm come from the sinking of the shoulder blade, maintaining this area open. Can feel the connection a little bit also from the palm with the shoulders to have this receiving quality to it, like the palm is ready to absorb the chi from the sky and feel that strong connection through the torso from the shoulder down all the way down to our feet. And then as we exhale, allow it to sink, connect through. And here, as we open up our arms, making sure that, especially with the back arm, we're not overly pushing and closing it, but feeling the openness again through the shoulder blades, rotating the arm and allowing it to open. And here, have this relaxed posture and not be closed in. Up. Inhale. Same here. As our arms start to pass, we want the opening and feeling how the rotation and the sinking of the shoulder blade on this side starts to spiral and rotate through all the way to the palm as I'm arriving here, up, and then connecting on both sides. We'll just do one side for this movement, just for time. The practice for the shoulder is the same, regardless of which leg is in front. Here, to get that opening sensation, we want to make sure also that the hip is nice and open so that the foot slightly at an angle, the knee is in the same angle as well, and that the hip is opening. So as I'm facing up with the camera, my foot is slightly open, not quite 45, but in a comfortable position. My knee go in the same direction. I don't want my knee to collapse inward. And so as I'm here and I start to sit and rotate the torso, I want to be careful that my knee does not follow and collapse inwards, which would create a lot of tension first in the knee, which is not good. Second of all, would end up closing the hips and therefore closing here, which would mean that my upper torso will have a lot more chance of being closed because everything is not aligned. But if the sole of my feet is rounded, if my knee is nicely aligned with my foot, then it brings the hip a little more forward, allowing the Scarpa triangle or the inguinal triangle to open up, feeling that we're sitting on our leg so that the front leg is free to move, and therefore here being able to get the rotation from the waist, allowing the sinking of the shoulder blade and that extension through the chest as we're extending the arm up, which then allow the spine to stretch and let the head push forward. Up, same thing as I move forward. I want to make sure that my knees stay aligned with my feet, that my hips, although they do rotate a little bit more when I'm forward, they're not pulling my leg in, but they're opening this area the same way that I'm opening through the shoulders, through the shoulder blades, and allowing the expansion through the arms to happen. Up. And one more. Up and exhale. Simply bringing the feet back parallel, taking a little pause for a moment, feeling how the opening of the shoulders is still present, or if you started to close them up a little bit, allowing the sensation to come back, open, and fill. Taking time to smile, that was also another lesson earlier this week. If you need to, you can redo the first exercise we did today with the thumb facing out, just to see if the shoulders are still open, if the spine is nicely stretched upward. Up. And doing it with a smile. Good. Any questions so far? How are you guys doing? Good. Good. If you have questions in the meantime, write them down in the chat. And if you're watching the video on replay, just leave a comment and I'll look into it afterwards. You're welcome, Michael. Glad you enjoyed this. Good. So we did this one last time, so I'm not gonna go back into it so much. Did we talk about the rotation? Let's talk about this one, especially for the upper position, because that creates a big impact, and especially for those of you who also practice Tai Chi Chuan as a martial art, the connection through the shoulder blade, through the shoulder and into the arm has a particular effect, although it's more present here. We also have this through the fisherman casting its net. So as we start, we want to make sure that we're not lifting up the shoulder and lifting the shoulder blade up, but on the opposite, that as we bring our hand, we use the breath and the sinking of the shoulder blade to allow the hand to come into place so that the upper trapezius remain low and that we don't have this tension here. So here, let me scooch down a bit. So if you notice here, my upper trapezius, as I'm sinking the shoulder blade to raise the arm, upper trapezius remained low and is, see here, and it's still very soft and not tense, versus if I'm raising my arm with this, you can see how it makes a big bulgy area and very tense. Whereas sinking the shoulder blade allow also, if you notice the positioning of the elbow, yes, in the camera. So if you notice the positioning of the elbow, as I release and sink, the elbow will be in a different position. It kind of comes down. The pointy is much more uh, horizontal, pointing out, which brings this up and creates a bit more of that roundness, extended roundness through the arms, which give the arm a lot of strength as we're doing this. So here, as we're rising and inhaling, using the breath to expand the chest, sinking the shoulder blade and allowing the arm to come up, allows us to get into this position without tension within the upper trapezius, or very little, to get into the right position of throwing the fisherman's nest. Here, the lower hand also, I want to make sure that the shoulder is not closed, but that it's sink back and that I feel the connection through the upper back, the sinking of the two shoulder blades, the link between the rhomboids and the middle trapezius that brings them a little closer to the spine. And again, closer to the spine without pushing the chest forward. but keeping this roundness and expansion happening through. So again, as I get here, inhaling, feeling the sinking of the shoulder blades, setting my arm into place, and then I can have this rotation through the waist, having the opening of the hips through the horse stance and that solidity of the lower body, getting the rotation out, and then here allowing the hand, so being careful that I'm not overstretching my lower hand as I'm pushing it here, which would close the shoulder, but allowing it to remain in place as the rotation comes from the waist. And here, sinking the shoulder blade even more so to bring my arm up, making sure that my upper trapezius and this area remains low and opening the shoulder well so that I have this strength connecting through all the way down to my foot and rotating around. So inhaling as you turn to your left, exhaling as you turn to your right. And if you want, you can take a moment in the center, relaxing the shoulders, feeling how you can maintain that openness through the shoulder well, which allow the clavicle to rise while the sternum sink, allow the ribs to open up and the shoulder blade to sink, so that we have all these movement happening front and back, and allowing the sinking and the opening through the hips, connecting the legs together. And here, once you have the position, rotating from the waist, pushing through, and then allowing the upper chest to finish the rotation without lifting the shoulders, up, switching hands, throwing the net, so feeling that strength that come from the shoulder blade, from the back, extending through the arm, giving you the feeling that you're pushing almost against something as you're rotating to the side. Inhale, switching, exhale. In, and out. In, out. One more. Inhale, exhale. Good. How was this one for you guys? How different did it feel? Was it relatively easy to do? Did you get any tension? Is it a bit more difficult? Sometimes rising the arm above makes play a little bit differently. So give me just a second. I have a question on this side. So there was a question regarding movement number 3, the will tree. Doesn't matter which way up the back, the palm. Um, back, which way up the back palm is as you complete the turn on each side. Yes, there is an aspect to that. So for, let's see here, the willow tree, as I'm coming up, here the palm pushes as far as I can without creating tension. So let me head this way. Without creating tension here so that the shoulder would close up the shoulder well. I'm pushing out. And then once I reach the maximum push, the backhand naturally just turns and floats above. So when we finish our inhale, we want our hands to be floating on top of the chi. It's not a movement where I'm rising the chi very high. It's a movement that affects the lower body and the kidneys in particular. So I want my kidney chi to rise up. And then here as I exhale, let me step a little forward. Here as I exhale, again, same thing. I'm pushing towards the back as much as I can without, without rolling the shoulder, but just allowing it then to open and float. So forward, allowing the hand to switch and naturally float. So I'm using the coordination through the body to just allow it to go up. As my hand come down, it pushes the chi towards the back, and then it naturally start to float. The front hand, having more opening, rises the chi all the way to the head, turns and come back down. But the back hand, I don't want to try to go too far out. I don't want to try to go too far out, which would create a lot of tension in the shoulder. I want it to remain open and extend and then float. There's no point in rotating all the way up to rotate again and come back. It's just too much movement for nothing. So here I'm rising, floating, coming back, turn, rising, and float. So Jane, I hope this answered your question on this, and thank you for reaching out for this one. Is it far away from cloud hands in set one regarding the fisherman casting the nets? Physically on the outside, it looks very similar. Energetically, they're the opposite of each other. So set one cloud hands, the shoulder positioning, everything else will be the same with the exception of the upper hand being facing forward. So physically, if I'm here versus if I'm here, there's not much of a difference. One of the physical aspect that it does is if I'm coming here, rotating to the side in set one, cloud hand position, as I reach the 180 degree, I can't really go any further. But if my hand here just flips, which creates a rotation through the forearm and creates a change in the upper alignment of the shoulder, then all of a sudden I have a little more reach outward. And that's why in set two, Fisherman Casts Nest, we go a little further because the change in position of the palm and the effect it has through the arm and the shoulder allow me to go a little bit further. So that's one of the difference. The other one is that in cloud hands, my chi is rotating inside my body. Because of the positioning of the palm, I'm moving the chi left and right, up and down. And as the movement occur, I have this circulation connecting the Jing and the Shen and feeling this ball moving through my body. And it's mostly a me movement, so to speak. Whereas Fisherman Cat's its Nest, it's a external. So I'm filling up my Wei Qi, I'm filling up the bubble around me. I'm getting what I cultivated inside. I'm now allowing it to expand and fill up this big bubble all around me. So I become, how to say, this one gathers the chi a bit more inside and circulate it within my bubble. Now that my bubble is full, I'm expanding it. Therefore, the movement is much more outward and filling up the Wei Qi and the space around me. Hope that makes sense for you, Alex. And really that the difference is when you feel it here, when you do cloud hands and then shifting the upper hand, the opening of the shoulder well remains the same. There's just that slight change for the upper hand that creates the wider possibility of a wider movement, and then the sensation in the chi, that expansion that happened, is different. Good. Excellent. Perfect. So it's already the hour. We're gonna keep it a little shorter for today. Sorry again for having been a little later today. And we'll continue playing with this most likely on Monday to integrate a bit more this notion, because the opening of the shoulder well is definitely an important one. And so we can continue developing this and growing it throughout the other movement of step 2. So thank you very much, everyone. Have a beautiful weekend. And if you have more questions, feel free to write them down in the comment section. I'll be happy to reply to you shortly. All right. Have a good day, guys. Talk to you soon. Bye bye.